these are the next meta Yu-Gi-Oh decks. My guy, not only does Valiant Smashers introduce 3 new Yu-Gi-Oh decks that players are testing right now, there's actually a couple of other decks you need to know about before it is too late. And today, not only will I be unveiling what those decks are and what they do, I'll also be posting personal deck lists on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. As always, I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Let's jump into the video. Now, I ain't gonna cap, big dog. Valiant Smashers is not a good Yu-Gi-Oh set. I actually made a whole video detailing everything about the set on my other channel, TheCaliEffect, and I think you should genuinely take a look at that if you really want to get an in-depth detail. But one thing I won't do is dismiss the strategies inside of Valiant Smashers, and I don't think you should either. Because time after time again, Konami has released a set like this, where the cards don't look so good, but overall, they turn out to be incredibly powerful. And if you don't believe me, sets like the Grand Creators, Tactical Masters, Wild Survivors, and just recently Amazing Defenders were all sets that pretty much came out similar to Valiant Smashers. All incredibly underwhelming decks at first sight, but with some new support, they became a lot stronger. So strong, big dog, that 10 out of the 12 of these decks inside of those sets have all topped the highest level events in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's crazy when you think about it, but deck build sets actually have a higher chance at being the top Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks than some of the strategies inside of our main sets. It's ridiculous. And in these sets, we normally do get a front runner Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategy. These tend to be the best out of the box. Centurion is the best out of the box inside of this Valiant Smasher set. Now, Centurion, Konami, you're doing things. The Centurion strategy is a group of monsters that can also be placed inside of the spell and trap card zone as trap cards. It gives them the flexibility of being able to activate themselves to summon themselves as monsters and gain some pretty cool effects. Centurion Primera gets you Centurion cards from your deck to your hand, and Trudea can place itself as a trap card to be able to place other Centurion monsters into that spell and trap card zone. And lastly, to wrap up the Centurion monsters, Emmett the Sixth can summon itself as a level 8 monster from your spell and trap card zone, and the biggest thing that this deck wants to do is synchro summon into 12. Its boss monster, Centurion Legatia, just might be the very best level 12 synchro monster in the game. Not only does it prevent your monsters with 2,000 or less attack from being destroyed by battle, it can also draw a card and destroy a card on your opponent's side of the field, as well as every turn place a non-synchro Centurion monster back into your spell and trap card zone as a trap card. This card is incredibly powerful and some of its best effects are generic, and seeing that Centurion can synchro summon into 12 easily, you can already bet that monsters like Crimson Dragon are incredibly easy to summon, and this deck can actually summon Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity in 4 summons. My guy, what is up with Calamity decks? They always seem to be here. This is like Konami's 5th time making Calamity deck. I'm not upset. Nah, not at all. Does this look like the face of a man that's upset? Nah, he's happy that Calamity still exists. Now, while Centurion is seen as the most competitive strategy by far, I really wouldn't sleep on the other two. They actually have quite a few things that are going for them that can make them extremely deadly, and that's what brings me to talk to you about Memento. The thing that I like the most about Memento is that it's not necessarily based off of new Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It's actually based off of some of the oldest cards in the entire game, and that's what has me excited. You know, Boomer me has to go for the nostalgia.
I know what that is!
Take, for example, Memento Attic Ghost. It's actually not based off of Karibo. It's actually based off of Wretched Ghost of an Attic, a card that I used to play back in Dark Duel Stories. God damn, I'm old. Memento Horn Dragon is based off of Tri-Horn Dragon. Memento Dark Blade is, of course, based off of Dark Blade. And Memento Tatsudo, toot that ass. I don't know how to say his curse name. It's definitely based off of an old Yu-Gi-Oh card, though. They all are. The Memento monster's main strategy is based off of being able to destroy your other Memento monsters, which gets them into the graveyard. Ultimately, you summon Memento, the Necro Soul Dragon, which is the overarching theme of the entire deck. The reason why these cards are so important is because of their trapped cards, Memento Cranium Burst and Memento Fraction Dance. Both of these cards require your Necro Soul Dragon to be on the field to use their effects, but the good thing is that you can use these effects as many times as you want. Well, at least for Cranium Burst, as long as you can reduce the attack of Memento Necro Soul Dragon by 1,000, you can use its effect. And seeing that it already starts off with 5,000 attack, that's 5 opportunities to stop your opponent's cards. I would 100% say the deck is a rough skeleton right now, which is a great pun, but I think as long as Konami can keep turning some of those older cards into Memento cards, that can actually generate even more cards for us to play, which means it'll be easier to get Necro Soul Dragon to the side of the field. In my honest opinion, I actually see a little bit more potential for this particular strategy because there's just so many bad Yu-Gi-Oh cards that can use a Memento retrain. And all the deck needs is a Foolish Burial-like card to get a lot of these into the graveyard, and bam, you got a 5 negation, 1 monster, and the rest of your deck can be pretty much anything. Now the last strategy out of Valiant Smashers, I ain't even gonna hold you, I didn't even bother to read these cards until the video came out. And the main reason why is because it's a pendulum strategy. I ain't got no time for doing all that reading, but unfortunately, I had to do the reading for you, so you can thank me by giving me your undying loyalty and subscribing to the channel. I will say the Val-Monica monsters actually have a really cool theme. They're based off of the angel and the devil on your shoulder telling you what to do, and you're gonna have to pick the correct side and make the right choices to be able to win the game. I remember the last time I had an angel and a demon on my shoulders. I'm picking the demon side, my guys. You know I'm a whole one out. And that's how I wound up here. The Val-Monica strategy is shaped exactly like this because anytime that you gain life points or lose life points while you have Val-Monica Angelo or Demane in your pendulum scale, you get a counter on these particular cards. And when you get 3 counters on these particular monsters respectively, you can summon Val-Monica Zalfobrara or Jeremy. Come on, guys, you know I can't spell or enunciate or read. I can't do none of those. But the Link monsters, my friend, the Link monsters. Now, both of the Val-Monica Link monsters have a couple of things in common. They both allow you to be able to copy the effect of a Val-Monica spell or trap card that is in your graveyard or banished. And they both have some pretty good effects to keep you in the game. Take, for example, Zebafera allows you to be able to protect itself by removing 3 resonance counters, but Jeremy actually does something a little bit different. This card can destroy monsters and attack 3 times. Hey, yo, what? A 2,500 attack monster that can attack 3 times. That's crazy, my friend. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When you first look at the Val-Monica cards and you realize that it needs counters and you gotta gain life points and you gotta take damage, it's a deck that doesn't look appealing. But then you start looking at the benefits of these particular monsters and the deck actually shares a whole different side of it, quite literally. Now reflecting back at all 3 strategies, I would have to say that Val-Monica probably is the weakest of the 3, but to be honest with you, this one does look promising as well and can be really good with the correct support. It just depends on if Konami does give the correct support, which they typically do. Now, ironically, since we are talking about deck build sets, we gotta circle back to Amazing Defenders. When that set came out, all 3 of those strategies looked like complete trash, cheeks, doodle water. But now fast forward into 2023, every single one of these strategies have won at the highest Yu-Gi-Oh level event, which is kind of crazy. To be fair, what we already expected was Pearly and Rescue Ace to become incredibly good, and it's mainly because we saw it coming from what happened in Japan. What we did not see coming is Makanu being a deadly Yu-Gi-Oh deck. You can't escape Makanu, big dog. It does not matter, Master Duel or here, you gotta deal with it. Now, to be fair, a lot of players just simply do not know what Makanu does, which is why I'm here to clear that air, because I had to read them too. A few things that you need to know about this deck is that these monsters cannot be destroyed by battle while they are equipped to an equip card. Also, your opponent takes all of the damage when they battle. I genuinely thought I wouldn't have to say this until I witnessed Top Deck TJ attack into the monsters over and over again. I have no idea how the man wins games. I genuinely don't. If you look at it that way, at the very lowest, Makanu is a deck that needs your opponent's monsters to survive, meaning that if you don't summon any monsters, you can't lose the game. You couldn't be more wrong. Because of the new monsters Qin and Jin that came out in Age of Overlord, Makanu was able to do a couple of crazy things. One, it's able to give you Qin and Jin. This can easily disrupt a card out of your hand and allow them to get into cards that they need. But two, it actually satisfies a whole demonic goal that they got. It gives you a monster. They are not attacking into that. Because the Makanu monsters just so happen to be level 3 and are very easy to summon to your side of the field, using Qin or Jin on their side of the field, plus a Makanu monster can make Acid Golem, which then they link summon into Geonator Transverser and give you the Acid Golem. And in case you didn't know, Acid Golem has this unique ability where the player that has it cannot special summon. I'm not crying, you're crying. Basically, in essence, if you guys remember the branded format with the gimmick puppet, this is pretty much the exact same thing, except a little bit more consistent and a backup plan in case that doesn't work. And the last strategy I noticed that can make a huge impact in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, especially the way that it's going, is easily one of the strongest decks in the game because of how Yu-Gi-Oh is. Infernoble Knight is simply that Yu-Gi-Oh deck right now. It's ridiculously crazy how powerful Infernoble Knight is, but it's actually multiple components that I want to tell you about, and it's not just because of the deck itself. Infernoble Knight is really good because there's a whole bunch of other decks that are really good, making it incredibly hard for you to prepare for Infernobles. Basically what I'm saying is Infernoble is only disgusting if you don't prepare for it specifically. Infernobles are hands down the best combo deck in Yu-Gi-Oh right now because not only do they have ways to be able to prevent hand traps from getting to their important monsters, they also pretty much play through multiple hand traps like it's nothing and still do the exact same thing over and over again. The new monster Emperor Charles the Great not only allows you to stop some of your opponent's most important card effects, it also gains the effects Infernoble Emperor Charles, which can destroy cards on the field. But just in case you thought that that wasn't bad, the new card in Angel Ring that came out in this particular set is crazy. The biggest problem for combo decks is that they never really had a way to be able to beat cards like Super Polymerization. It seems like a very unfair card when used against you, but it's perfectly balanced, especially when you gotta do it to somebody else. But Angel Ring is worded a little bit differently than some of the other cards. It actually doesn't prevent the activation of a card's effect, it just negates the effect. Meaning that Super Polymerizations, your opponent can't activate cards in response means nothing. Angel Ring can still stop it, and that's what makes this deck ridiculously scary. I've also talked to some of the best players in the game, and they've all unanimously agreed when this deck goes first, it's a high percentage, like in the 80s, that it just automatically wins because you don't have the preparation for it. One thing that I absolutely love about Yu-Gi-Oh is that almost any deck can compete, but when we have a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that takes advantage of it in the wrong ways possible, I think it can be a little bit of a problem. And hopefully I'm just overreacting when I say this, but Infernoble Knights are a pretty toxic Yu-Gi-Oh deck, at least as it stands. I really hope that the Yu-Gi-Oh card game can adjust to make it a little less toxic and make it a lot more fair. And that's all that I have for the meta-changing Yu-Gi-Oh decks. Of course, I want you guys to let me know what are the decks that you think are amazing right now. What are some decks that are going to change Yu-Gi-Oh for what it is? As always, Big Dog, for giving you this information. I only ask for one thing and one thing only, your undying loyalty. Be sure to check out these other videos for amazing TheCaliEffect content, and I'll be sure to catch you on the next one.